Hi there, this is Nanette Nolan with 33rd District PTA, and I'm here to give you the last of the lessons that I have for now. This is lesson number 3 on the membership calendar. And in this short training, we'll go through month by month to give you the general roadmap for what your role and your unit's role might look like. So, oops, get that going. Um, although your role technically starts July 1. Once elected, which is usually April or May, is actually kind of when the new position begins. So this is all about new boards meeting and beginning to hand off with the previous board members and training. So as you well know, a board member's position actually starts after they've been elected. Um, even though, again, July 1 technically is the start of the new term. So, needless to say, this time of year is busy, right? Especially if you're in a PTA role at this juncture and you're transitioning to like the membership role or handing off the membership role, you're kind of doing double duty. Your new role, at least getting acclimated, and then, the handoff. So, council membership chairs getting ready. They're about this time getting up to speed on their role. Maybe they're creating a roster of unit member chairs and presidents. You may not have, and actually will not likely have all of that information, but planning to start that roster and finding where the gaps are, that's important. You'll likely be meeting with your new unit chairs and attending any training that's provided for you and your units. If your council hosts training, you might even be working with your predecessor to co-lead training. So some councils actually deliver training, once or twice annually to their units. And so, if that's the case with you, you may be fortunate enough to be tag teaming with somebody or, maybe leading your own training. Um, so be sure to check in on that. Council chairs will also start thinking about goals, contests, plans, and initiatives for next year and setting up their budgets. As you know, the last association meetings of the year are usually when we approve the budgets. And so it's kind of important to know what your plans and goals and incentives will be and how much approximately those will cost. So that way you can request the funds and have that added to the budget. It can change later, of course, but good for you to know. And unit chairs will also be onboarding, learning their new role as a board member and as a chair. So important to know. Also, get a hold of your bylaws. That's pretty important. Start reviewing the toolkit, asking questions. So yeah, lots of onboarding that April, May. Units will also likely start planning for their bigger registration drives, which usually include membership envelopes, flyers, and/or electronic membership drives. So, in my experience, some school districts, by the time school's out in June, like May or June, units are already have their plan well in hand, already know what they're charging for dues, already have the material set up, and they don't do much of anything over the summer. It's now with the school district. It's a little different for every school and school district, so be sure to find out what the norm is within your school district and each unit, and try to maybe make note of that somewhere if that's helpful. And this all usually involves the unit president and their school administrator, so important to know that. If you happen to be a school district that's moving to a completely digital or virtual um, membership, uh, well, I guess school registration, make sure that you understand what the membership role is and whether or not someone can actually purchase membership directly through like the school's registration process. Is that something separate? This is where you being a part of the council and aligned with the school district is really helpful because you guys can kind of vet ideas and ensure that PTA doesn't get forgotten. Units must use the dollar amount in their current bylaws. So if they plan on an increase, the proposed bylaw changes must be presented to the association, routed to the council, who then routes them to the 33rd District PTA, who routes them to the California State PTA. And once the state PTA accepts the bylaws, they send them back through channels to district council, so, over to the unit, whereby the unit has to present the revised bylaws to the association and vote before, very important, before any new dues can be used. Same for implementing family or group membership. So uh, I know that I just covered a lot about bylaws just now. And just know that you cannot change the dues noted on your bylaws at any time, as it involves a detailed and lengthy process for your bylaws. So if you know that a unit wants to change dues, it should happen very early in the school year so that the association can approve the submitted changes at an association meeting and be able to that year accept the returned state PTA proposed bylaws before any dues increase can be in effect. So if you have questions, your council parliamentarian is a great place to start. You can also reach out to the 33rd District parliamentarian who's incredibly knowledgeable. And there's a great deal of information about this as well at the California State PTA website. But I want to just emphasize here training is vital, especially in these early days. You'll attend training early to get a solid understanding of your role. But the same for your units. They should be expected to come to training or at least take some recorded trainings, of which there is a lot now. And we also hope that even if you do training in April or May, a very common thing, actually highly recommended, is to come back and repeat that training or come to another training in the fall. So that should be the expectation. Once you've taken your role in the summer or springtime, and then once again in the fall is like kind of a refresher, and throughout the year to reinforce what you've learned and to keep growing your skills. So when you're new, there's a lot of stuff, as we know, that doesn't make a lot of sense until you get into your role, which doesn't actually happen again until fall. By then, you've probably lost a lot of what you learned because it didn't have relevance. So that's the reason I highly advocate for training, training, training. And when you're pitching it to your units and to your membership chairs, yes, their time is important. Yes, their time is vital, but training is basically what saves their skin more times than not. And if they utilize all the tools and the training up front, it saves them so much hassle, work, and mistakes later. So, hopefully, you're also going to plan on attending the California State PTA convention, which usually happens in April or May, and it is a must attend. Honestly, for all PTA leaders, it offers tons of training. There's invaluable networking. It's also an opportunity to see the mission of the PTA come into fuller focus. So, no matter how long you've been a part of PTA, I think once you've come to like your first convention experience, you're kind of, I would say, transformed. I think you have a whole new view on what the PTA is about and how vast it really is. Um, so I can't stress that enough. Please do plan on attending the conventions anytime you're able to. And if you guys ever have money and needed someone to go to the National PTA, I'd say that's also a great opportunity. So once oops, let's move this past. Sorry. Oh no. Oh, me. Oh, okay, sorry, jumped the gun here. So in July and June and July, I should say, we're heading toward the summer months, right? So a lot of schools have let out by early June, mid June latest. So June and July units are usually still working behind the scenes. They're including membership chairs, both council and unit, wrapping up any of the reporting, starting to wind down, and hopefully enjoying a little bit of R&R. Units may end well before June 30th, right, which is the end of our term, but the current member chair should be wrapping up the reports and making sure that their figures match the financial teams and providing the roster and all of their membership information to the incoming officer. So if they're maintaining a physical binder or a digital folder somewhere like Google Drive, they should be making sure that the incoming person has all of the material they're going to need to start off, July 1. And July goes quickly. So the new chair will want to keep the registration and orientation dates on their calendar, any important dates for the following year. This includes you as a council chair. So if you know what your meeting dates are and when money should be turned in and any kind of important milestones, even if you're looking at last year's calendar, because maybe the calendars haven't been fully vetted and developed yet, that'll still give you a very good indication of when things generally are due. So please do, have insist that your units pass along stuff to their incoming chairs, and that likewise, whether you're the outgoing, make sure that your incoming person gets the right stuff, or if you're incoming, make sure that you get all of the right stuff from your predecessor. So it's, again, super important because they'll be collecting membership. You don't want anyone to start from behind. Maybe that's what I should say more succinctly. For councils, June is very much a hands-off and wrap-up month. as well. But you'll want to ask your units to provide their final membership numbers, and you'll want to work with your council team to be sure all membership dues have been remitted before the term ends. Um, Councils may also be using this time to create their membership chair roster and finalizing any of their own contests and goals. Again, past information is critical, and if for some reason you never got this info from your predecessor, you can always reach out to 33rd District's membership chair, and we'd be perhaps happy to provide you with any data that we do have in terms of financials and or membership numbers that we have on record. August, September, back to school. So the focus is heavily on membership drives, start of school, back to school nights. There's a lot going on, and it's probably the busiest time of year for membership. So, depending on your school calendar, units may be supporting school registration and back to school paperwork processing in August and September. That usually coincides with the big membership drives. They should also be thinking about, if they haven't already, creating a membership plan and a theme for the year, and thinking about how they want to increase their membership numbers year over year. And it's so important to have you have those numbers, something to kind of like fight for, work toward. If there are back to school activities, this is the unit's chance to shine and really talk up PTA, all that it does for the community. Membership desks are encouraged at every school event where they're permitted. Some units have welcome receptions or activities for transitional kindergarten, incoming freshmen, new sixth or seventh graders, for instance, new kindergarten, new families, etc. Make sure that that your membership always has presence, or your membership efforts, I should say, always has presence at these school events. So again, and I think you can see how one person, oftentimes at units, is the one carrying the load, but encourage others to, for them to enlist help and get other board members. Just because they are the membership chair does not mean that the rest of the board is kind of off the hook. Membership really is everyone's job. You may also be devising a plan for how you're going to communicate and support your units. So think about creating a schedule now that provides you greater likelihood of follow through later. So you may decide that in August you'll reach out, in the weeks leading up to their registration drives, and you'll follow up again, and with a reminder about back to school nights and some additional resources they can get and use there. If we have training, you may want to make sure that they're getting that passed along, and just have a plan to reach out, on a monthly or fairly consistent basis. Um, and then councils, maybe you'll be putting together contests. So again, this would have probably been decided in the past with your budget plan, but this is kind of where you're starting to put, plan into action. So contest info should be in your hands by September from the 33rd District, and that comes from the California State PTA as well. And we'll be sure to communicate all of our contests and due dates to you, as well as any goals we've set for your units or your council. And we'll remind you about those goals and where you're at, throughout the year. But for sure, consider having your own goals and your own contests as well. You're not required, but certainly a great way to increase some interest. And while September, has passed, the membership efforts will usually continue to be pretty hot and heavy into October. And October is actually a pretty important PTA month. By the end of October, all PTAs are required to have a minimum of 15 members, 1-5. That is a very small number. And I will tell you right now, as an aside, although this is the bare minimum, we need lots of members to support our PTAs in their efforts. Members are critical to our volunteer and leadership pipelines. Without members, making a quorum, which is the minimum number of people needed to vote, in order for business to be conducted, in just general conducting business can be negatively impacted. If you have a school, let's say, that has 300 or 400 people and you only have 15 members, that's not really truly representative of your school site, nor is it enough people to even really represent anybody at the school in any significant way, just generally. 15 people making a decision for 300 people hardly seems right. So if you do see that 15 number and it seems to stall, please do impress upon your units the importance of continuing to press membership. It's not a fundraising activity. It is absolutely the lifeblood to PTA. And again, I know that some units may have, may look at it unfavorably, but it is, as PTA officers, each our responsibility to drive membership. So every unit should ensure that all of their board and chairs are members and that they remit to their councils monthly. The 100 and 100 contest that comes from the California State PTA is for any unit that has 100 or more members by the 100th day of the new term. So that's pretty early in October. So you'd want units to remit to your council mid to late September so that their councils have time to, you know, create the check and get payment over to the 33rd district in order for it to qualify in enough time for us to get that to the state PTA in order to qualify for this award. No application would be needed, but important to know that contest does exist. And the Ready, Set, Remit contest, also a California State PTA contest, requires a minimum of 30 members to be turned in to your council in order to qualify. So units should turn in remits by, let's say, mid-October to you at the council in order for you to get that money over to the 33rd district in order for us to get it to California State PTA. So while you'll see on the California State PTA deadlines may say like November 31st or October 31st or whatever it is. Actually, I don't know if November has 31 days. Maybe October. Let's say November 30th. Let's call it even. Um, uh, so even though like it may give you a date, you always want to back it up and know that there's actually an earlier date that you have to turn in as council payment to your district in order for you to give that district enough time to remit it up through channels to California State PTA. So just helpful to know that. Remember that units will be collecting dues by check and by cash. They may also be using electronic payment like PayPal or Member Planet. uh, the one tool that over 80% of our units use to collect dues is Totem. It's a free California State PTA official electronic membership system. The beauty of this tool is that it takes care of part of the paperwork for you automatically once a month. So let's say a unit's dues are like $10. A person will purchase a membership via Totem for a $10, plus they'll pay an additional $1 surcharge. Nothing gets charged to your unit. It's just the charge that people will pay if they choose to pay this way. If they're going to buy 10 memberships and they don't want to pay $10 in a surcharge, that's totally fine. They can always write a check or give you cash or do it through some other means if that's helpful. But again, they would pay the $11, and then the portion that goes to the unit would actually once a month be popped into your bank account, and then the distribution to council, district, state, and national would be distributed automatically that same day for you. So there's no paperwork. That's just money's collected and dumps into your bank. It usually requires a second line item just to track it differently from the dues that come in through other means, but it's really kind of a minor thing, and it's really great. So if you don't happen to be using Totem or of units that aren't using Totem, please let me know, and happy to speak with anybody directly and kind of show them the back end. And um, it's really been helpful. I think anybody who's been using it, especially during the pandemic COVID years, it really did save our bacon. I think a lot of units were able to do some amount of picking up membership virtually by being able to put the link in an email on the website and their social media and so forth. Um, so there's some pretty smart reporting tools and a lot of other tools, pulling like member lists. There's like a communications tool embedded. Again, all for free. So not all units and councils use it, but we've seen that it's been a very successful tool, and especially in the past couple of years when we couldn't be on campus. And now, I mean, people have them on their flyers at school, on banners, QR code. You can scan it with your phone. You sign up, log in through Gmail or Facebook or whatever, or through just an email. It takes literally 1 or 2 minutes of that. It is so quick. And then people get a digital membership card. Honestly, so many goodies. That's my plug. Um, but at the council level, this is kind of your time to love on those membership chairs. So help them by reminding them of the important dates and alerting them to any of the missing membership information. So if you, again, that you're not getting their rosters, you haven't had any remits, you didn't know what their goal was, um, this is a great time to be checking in, because kind of like the busyness of August and September have sort of subsided. They're still very busy, likely, but this plan for a follow-up training or maybe some roundtables to help units uncover some smart peer-tested ideas. So October is also quite busy, but I think it's kind of a neat, productive one. And as I spoke about earlier, there's some pretty important kind of membership dates that are really worth being mindful of and pushing all your units to over the line for. So November and December, I kind of think of it as it's going to feel like the calm after the storm. The first months of school were wild, right? So much to do, the startup of school, and while PTA leaders have a lot on their plates throughout the year, membership does tend to settle down quite a bit here. And as a matter of fact, most of the membership is collected by December. So, you'll notice a steep trickle or a drop off of membership. Hopefully not, but that's pretty typical. But this also means that there's kind of an opportunity for growth right after the winter break as well. So, in this time space, units are uh, using this time hopefully to recalibrate. You can kind of suggest that, remind them that this is a good time to kind of just think about stuff, get their paperwork in order. So, again, August and September are just insane. And then by the time you get to October, you're probably just kind of like playing a little bit of catch up, sort of, But November, December, it starts to get a little quieter. And, it would be good for them to think about who also hasn't joined. Do you have teachers or staff? Are you at 100% teachers? What about your past members or community members? You can look at old rosters and see, and actually reach out to people. I mean, a lot of folks have very, very favorable opinions of their elementary, middle, or high schools. They may join even if they no longer have a student, and they absolutely can join. So looking at old rosters and reaching out and letting them know what's been going on and inviting them to join as a member to continue to support the children at that school is absolutely a great time to, or absolutely a great idea. Also, another thing to have your maybe units think about is, are there communities within their wider school community who they're missing? For instance, like ESL, which is English language learners, students with any special needs. Devise plans to share with what PTA does for their student and why your PTA needs them. So, um, you know, I kind of think of it as like we were able to attract people before this with a broad message. Maybe this is where kind of like more nuanced, specific messaging comes in really handy, because you can now kind of focus on, getting 10 more members this month, 20 more members, the last three holdout teachers, the principal and vice principal, like whoever hasn't joined, you can now hyper focus on them. And I think that's a really nice message. And I do think in November, December, people, because of all the holidays and the things happening, something about that the season seems to, I think, call upon people to give generously, and so maybe there's a little bit of play there as well. Um, for councils, things may have also settled down for your units, right? You're settling into your role, they're settling into to theirs. And this could be an ideal time to check in and also help units think about membership growth and plans for the new year. So if you do this early in November before, Thanksgiving or testing or the long winter break and that sort of thing, you might find that people are kind of receptive and have just a little bit of bandwidth before they kind of go dark for a couple of few weeks. Units might be electing their nominating committees at this point. You also might be electing your nominating committee. So you should use the most up to date member rosters to ensure that committee members are able to serve. So, again, it's important to remind presidents, parliamentarians, and membership chairs the importance of an updated membership list, and reminding them to consult their bylaws for details on eligibility. Again, this is why it's so important to have a deep membership list to draw from. I don't expect anybody here on this call to be parliamentarian or bylaws gurus. This is where you would want to like speak with your president and your parliamentarian and get a plan together. Maybe normally, I've seen councils send a message to their presidents and parliamentarian, and that's great. But maybe if you got a copy of that same message, you could tweak it some and make it sort of relevant, or at least, because there's a lot of information about, which parts of the bylaw to read and this, that, and the other. But if there was one thing you could do, is get that information, some of it at least, over to membership folks so that they also are well aware that they need to get their rosters ready with, complete information and contact details, and that they should be expecting the parliamentarian and the nominating committee to reach out for those membership lists. So, if they've maybe been a little slack on their rosters, especially if they had to do a lot of manual entries. Again, that's not the case with Totem, but if they're doing, check any number of check and cash, or outside, like outside payment, like again, like PayPal or MemberClicks or MemberPlanet, CheddarUp, what have you, they're definitely going to have paperwork they're going to have to reconcile. So again, just making sure that they understand that this is so important. And on to the next. Let's see. Oh, we've got January. So, new year. People come back kind of, refreshed from having a few weeks off. And, it's really easy to lose people to other things. As units emerge from the winter break, they may turn their focus to fundraising, to programs, field trips, and a lot of other school activities. Make sure that you continue to connect with your membership unit chairs and tell them to be advocates and factor in membership to all of their planning. Will they have tables at the events? Are there perks that the members get? Are kids getting front of the line passes, or a free homework pass, or weekly drawings, or monthly entries into a drawing? Like, what kind of goodies are we got going on? We've got a membership dance happening. Like, what can we do? So anything that a unit is planning be used as an incentive for a new member? Is there a discount on, like, last year's shirts, or anything? So we definitely want to make sure that we've got, as councils, we're leading our members, our units, I should say, into thinking about membership as a thing that goes hand in hand with just about everything that happens. And it should be. So think about ways to attract new members, maybe a few pitches, again, that I said that if you've used to attract the majority of your members, were put into action early on. But, there's other reasons that families don't join or staff doesn't join. So I think being able to spend the time crafting those messages, thinking about why membership is important to some groups differently than it is to others, I think is important. You can also visit the National and California State PTA membership pages for excellent ideas on driving membership. They are often pretty easy to implement and honestly usually free and worth trying. You can also find membership materials in a range of languages and social media shareable content on the National PTA's site. I will also I always say too, like, I think what motivates one person doesn't motivate another. So maybe for me, the act of doing good for not just my child, but other children is the thing that, gets me excited about being involved in PTA. That's not everybody else's gig. Some people want to be involved in PTA because they want to advocate. Others want to be involved in PTA because they want to be in the know. Some want to be involved in PTA simply because they think it helps their children, and so that's their main concern. None of those reasons are wrong, but just know that you're going to have different people who are going to have different needs, and you have to be able to draw a line back to why your PTA is important to them. And that goes for council as well, but it's important for us to let units know that when they're making these pitches, that they really need to be thinking about who all of their audience is and trying to have kind of like plans for them. And again, you don't have to recreate the wheel. A lot of this already exists on the pta.org website. As a council leader, you'll get monthly reports from your president, or depending on who the membership chair, if not me, in future years, someone else, you may send you reports on a monthly basis too. And you can use that to kind of track current progress and measure it against the numbers that you have or are aware of. So, use these reports to see current progress and measure those against your established goals. Pay special attention to any units that may seem to have stalled in their efforts or haven't turned in for a while. If they gave you 15 in September and then gave you nothing else, and you're in January, that is a red flag. This could also be a great time to connect one-on-one with membership chairs and create a watch list of any units they may be struggling. So I think I've mentioned before, it's, hopefully if you're responding out to your folks, you may get one or two stragglers who don't generally respond back, but that, again, that might be cause for, just reaching out to their unit, president also, or checking in and seeing if everything's else is working good. Use your team, please use the rest of your council team to see, what might be at work. And it could just be a blip, it could be just the membership person's been out sick with COVID, it could be like they lost their membership chair. There's a whole host of things that could be happening, and the sooner you're able to kind of identify that, you can help them mitigate that. Then we've got February and March. That's usually when kind of like nominations and elections are happening for a lot of councils and units. This date may look different. Again, it's all up to people's individual or units' individual bylaws. But membership can easily be forgotten in the nominating and election process. As I mentioned before, make sure that rosters are kept up to date every month. And this goes for units as well as for councils. Be sure that the parliamentarian has a copy of the membership roster with new contact information. And only members are able to be elected to both the nominating committee and the slate. Be sure to have the latest membership roster available for voting as well. If you have questions, please contact the district parliamentarian or consult your bylaws or your own parliamentarian for key dates, positions, and requirements. You may be also holding your own council elections for officers as early as February. If so, having updated membership rosters from your units could be vital for voting and for filling vacancies and chair positions. So if I haven't said this before, you can ask your units to share membership rosters for this purpose. Members at any unit don't belong just to the unit. They belong to council, to district, to state, and national PTA as well. After elections, the cycle starts over again with training, onboarding, and helping new officers understand their roles and responsibilities and to prepare for success. That kind of loops us back around to the beginning of the whole thing. So I hope that this was helpful. I know that it was rather quick. If you have questions about anything at all, anything I mentioned and anything I didn't mention, please know that you can always reach out to membership@33rdpta.org. I wish you the best of luck and have a great year.